We start looking at the cultural difference between South Korea and Australia. The value and norms of a culture shaped by religion, political, economical philosophy, education, social structure, and language. As the political and economical perspective has mentioned before, so we start with the religion. According to the 2015 statistics, 44% of the Korean population has a religion. Among them, Buddhism and Confucianism has been more influential than any other upon the life of the Korean people. And over half of the country lists the culture, heritage, and related with the two religions. The influence of Confucian ethics on South Korea by lowering the cost of doing business, as Confucian system of ethics are of particular interest, loyalty, reciprocal obligations, and honesty in dealing with others. In modern organizations, based on this culture, the loyalty that binds employees to the head of their organization can reduce the conflict between management and labor. Corporations of management and labor can achieve at a lower cost. Reflecting the historical influence of European migration to Australia, Christianity was the most common religion reported in 2016. That 52% of people who has a religion that reported as Christianity. Protestants work hard and systematically to accumulate wealth. However, their belief suggests that rather than consuming this wealth by indulging in pleasure, they should invest it in expansion of capitalist enterprises. Language is a characteristic of a culture. Korean people tend to use a high-context language mode. That means when they spoke, most of the information is either in the physical context or internalized in the person, while very little in the coded, explicit, transmitted part of the message. Consequently, a high-context communicator will expect the recipient of the message to put in non-verbal cues and situational factors in their interpretation and do not feel the need to be specific. Tone. And Australian people were identified as low-context communicator. They exchange information primarily on the basis of direct, explicit communication centered on precise, straightforward words. The individualism versus collectivism dimension focuses on the relationship between the individual and his or her fellows. In individualistic societies such as Australia, the ties between individuals were low, and individual achievement and freedom were highly valued. In society like South Korea, where collectivism was emphasized, the ties between individuals were tight. In such societies, people were born into collectives, such as extended families, and everyone was supported to look after the interests of his or her collective. Masculinity versus femininity dimension look at the relationship between gender and work roles. In masculine culture, sex roles were sharply differentiated, and traditional masculine values such as achievement and the effective exercise of power determined cultural ideals. In feminine culture, sex roles were less sharply distinguished, and little differentiation were made between men and women in the same job. According to the table, notice that gender is related on the scale of 1 to 100, with 1 being most feminine and 100 being most masculine. So we can see that the Australia is more feminine than Korean, with rating of 16, and so although people in Korea may have different values and norms that differ from Australian, but the culture between two countries are becoming similar, because the political and economic system of these two countries are similar. Besides, the change in the varieties of the religion in South Korea also demonstrate the trend, as they were 80% of people who are identified with the religion are Christianity, and 45% are Protestant.